Hey everybody, great to have you back here in the fish tank. It's patch time again for Minion Masters. We're going to be looking at version 2.5 and all that it contains. But before we get into that, just a quick reminder, if you're new to the channel and you're not subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you keep up to date on all things Minion Masters related. Put the bell on, get involved, let's have it. Right. So we are still within the Frostbite expansion, which is, as you know, within Minion Masters. The expansions are 3 months long, with each having 3 monthly seasons within each. So we're in the last monthly season of Frostbite. So 2.6, the next patch after this will be a brand new expansion. But for now, we're finishing off the Frostbite expansion. So this is going to be a season patch that is going to be Outlander themed. So it's going to be called Emergency Mitigation Protocol. It's dropping on Monday the 24th of June, which is a little different from normal. If we follow the regular patch schedule, it should have been last Thursday, but because of some vacations within the development team, it's been shifted a little bit later, so it's going to be on Monday the 24th of June. As always, we're going to have a new season pass. As I mentioned, it's going to be Outlander themed. We're going to have a couple of new cards and some new cosmetics. New bridge rules. We'll go over those, and I'll have a more in-depth detail video on those going forward. As always, balance changes and a new tournament, but first of all, let's find out about the new cards. So, first new card, Protocol Assassin, Protocol 455455-1N. This is the first new card. So we can see here, this is going to be an Outlander minion. 6 mana, 60 DPS, doing 60 damage every second. So that's same DPS as a cleaver, but obviously puts it out in a very different manner. 350 health, so not particularly tanky. Melee, ground-based only. But it has a special ability. Well, it's not really ability because it's not an ability card. This is kind of similar to how the Highland Huntress works with her charged up vicious strike. So the Protocol Assassin has a charged up arc slash. So every 8 seconds, and I believe he actually spawns with the arc slash active. We'll have to double check that when we get our hands on him, which is slightly different to how the Highland Huntress works, because she spawns and then has to charge up her vicious strike. So I think this is a little bit different. So the arc slash means that your next attack, instead of it being a normal attack, it's a big line attack that does 150 damage to all enemies within the line. So this is going to be interesting because it's going to require placement, whether that's placement of the minion to make sure you hit the stuff that you want to hit. Similar to how you place the Caber Tosser, I guess, to get the Caber to hit everything. But also it's something for your opponents to keep in mind with regards to dealing with it. You know, you want to keep your units spread out. You don't want a big line of them to get murdered by this. So, that is Protocol Assassin. I'm not sure what we're going to call this guy, because we can't just call him Assassin because we've already got Assassins. Do we call him Protocol? It's kind of weird, but I'm sure the community will figure that out. Right, next up, we have a new spell called the Null Matrix. And this is kind of interesting because currently in the game, there's a lot of strong buffs. Rage, Spirit, Giant Growth, so on and so forth. And this aims to counter at least some of those strats. So this is a 4 mana Outlander spell. So it removes all positive effects. It says on minions, but I think it's on enemy minions. So it removes all positive effects on enemy minions in an area, and then deal 100 damage to all enemies in that area. I think that hits air as well. It doesn't do any face damage. So the idea of that, of course, remove powerful buffs and do damage. It's important to know that the buffs are removed first and then the damage is applied afterwards to whatever is left without any buffs. Now, you would think where it says remove all positive effects, that would mean that it removes all positive effects, but it doesn't, unfortunately. There are some that it does and some that it doesn't. Why? I don't know. And we may see this list change going forward. But the current list of things that it removes are Lycanthropy, Rage, Haste, Giant Growth, Marksmanship, Berserker Rage, and regular Shield. So there's some things it weirdly doesn't remove, like Divine Shield, for example, or Spirit. Not quite sure why. It's just kind of confusing, right? If it removes all positive effects, let it remove all positive effects. So that may change going forward. For example, if it's underperforming, they might add some extra stuff to that. And hopefully they can just clear up with the description of the spell to, you know, what does it remove. We know with, like, Feng, he has that positive effects tooltip. We could have a similar one here, I think. Right, so those are the two new cards, Protocol Assassin and the Null Matrix. As always, have a discussion in the chat if you're watching this live on the YouTube premiere, or let me know in the comments under the video, what do you think of these two new cards? Now, I don't think any of these cards are going to dominate the meta anything like the War Track Dreadnought has in the last season, which is good because the last season was ruined a little bit for me with the War Track Dreadnought. I didn't play it, but I played against it, and we all know how strong it was despite the nerfs, and we'll see in the balance coming up some more nerfs to it. But before we get there, let's have a look at the new cosmetics which will be available in the paid Season Pass, the Ruby Season Pass. So first of all, we have a new skin, which is going to be for Wrecked, which fits in nicely with this being an Outlander-themed expansion. So we've got Gunslinger Wrecked. Not really sure if there's any lore behind him, but he's basically a skeleton now with some big pistols. So that's a cool looking skin. We like that. Definitely not just a reskin. And I think the devs have been doing great recently. We've seen some cool new skins. And long may it continue. And as always, we'll have the avatars for the new cards, the Protocol Assassin and the Null Matrix. And we have a new emote, which is for Ravager. So if you're a Ravager fan, you might like that. Okay, so normally we'd go straight to the balance changes, but we have something extra to talk about today, which are the new bridge rules. Now, just to bring you up to speed, back in the day, you used to be able to place some minions on the bridge and take them immediately. So those minions are minions with horizontal spread. And what we mean by that is when you've got multiple minions that you're spawning at the same time, like a scrap pack, for example. So there's not just one area, there's like a bit of an area. So you can put some of them on the bridge. So you used to be able to do that. You used to be also able to take bridges through the collision mechanic, which is kind of a whole thing that could have a video on by itself. But basically, there's a hidden stat for all minions in the game called weight. And basically that weight stat is used when you place minions on top of each other. That dictates how they move. We can't have two minions in the same place. So if you place them on top of each other, whichever one is lighter will move and the heavier one will stay. And you can use that mechanic to take bridges. If there's something coming over the bridge, if you place something lighter on top of it, it will get pushed away from the minion onto the bridge and take it. So that's how the bridges used to be. And then those two mechanics were removed, so you could no longer do either of those. But now we have kind of a middle ground between those. And let me explain to you how those work. So we have a new timer when you're neutralizing a bridge. So previously you could neutralize a bridge immediately, whereas now it takes 1.5 seconds before you can neutralize the bridge. So that means you can't just place a unit on a bridge and then it runs back and takes it, for example, runs away from the bridge as you used to do back in the day, because it needs to remain on the bridge for at least 1.5 seconds to neutralize it. Once you've neutralized it, as long as there's no other enemies on the bridge, it immediately caps to your color. There's also a new animation to show you when you're on a bridge. It's kind of like a little sort of loading bar on the bridge to show you that you're capping it. So that's the big change in the bridge rules. 1.5 seconds allows most things to cap it. For example, a rammer running over the bridge will still cap it. Bridge buddies will have enough time to spawn on the bridge and then cap it even if they're running straight off of it. Stint will immediately capture a bridge with its special ability. So yeah, most things will cap it like they currently will. The jump monkey, if you jump straight over the bridge, it won't cap it. You kind of have to jump halfway onto the bridge to give yourself time to cap it. So most things interact with the bridges in pretty much the same way. A hasted rammer might get across the bridge, but you know, you don't see these things too often. Right, so that's the new rule. And then we're also having the old rules that we previously had removed a year or so ago, however long it was, implemented. So you can now again play minions with horizontal spread directly on a bridge. Blood imps, something like that. But of course, as we said before, if you play them on a bridge and then they run back to defend, you're not going to cap that bridge because of the 1.5 second timer. So that kind of little sort of bridge grab cheese has been removed a little bit. And you can also again take bridges with the collision mechanic. But again, you've got to be pushed onto the bridge and then remain on the bridge for a long enough time. So you can kind of do what you used to be able to do, but not so much as before. Let me know what you think of these bridge changes. Of course, the reason we have these bridge changes is the devs put out the surveys to ask if people wanted to keep it, change it, something new. The majority wanted it either changed back or something new, so that kind of drove the change. So it'll be interesting to see how these change. I don't think it's going to change massively, but it will certainly impact the way people will play a little bit, especially at the top level, and it will change some of the strength of certain strats. Right, so those are the new bridge rules. One thing to note, alternative master perks, they are planned for the next patch after this, 2.6. So keep an eye out for some videos about those, but they will not be in this patch yet. But that's something that devs have been working very hard on, and that's kind of one of their priorities at the moment. Let's have a look at the balance changes. What's getting stronger? What's getting weaker? What's getting changed in various ways that we don't even understand? Right, first of all, Demon Warrior. So this is kind of a bug fix, but it's a bug fix that ends up being a buff. For some reason, instead of it doing 200 damage previously when activated, it was only doing 175. Why? I don't know. But that's now been fixed. So that will change certain interactions. It will now one-shot when activated a Succubus, a Boom Buggy, Storm Tamer, stuff like that, whereas previously it didn't. So overall DPS going up in the activated form, and also is going to trade much better against certain things where it can just kill it in one hit. Next up we have a buff for Jezra, the Void Mother. So her mana cost is going down from 9 to 8, but the health is also being reduced a little bit from 750 to 700. But the health per mana is going up from 83 to 87.5, so I think overall a buff for her. Kamikaze Zeppelin, this kind of got overshadowed last season with War Track everywhere and this being nowhere. The health going up a little bit just to make it more likely to get to its required destination, because of course it is something that can be shot down, and if it gets shot down it basically does nothing. Right, next up we have a change to one of the least played cards, and of course if you're interested to know which are the strongest cards, which are the most played cards, etc., make sure you check out my meta videos. Right, so Mounted Shaper is going to have a vastly improved knockback consistency. So it should go bum, and if there's a minion here, that should go all the way with it, which it tend to not do. So it didn't do the damage that you would expect it to do. It wasn't reliable. So they've changed that knockback to be far more consistent. So if it hits something, it should push it all the way back and hit it with all the charges. Because remember, it charges up in your hand depending on how long it's been there for. Now, because the knockback consistency is going to be more consistent, they've reduced the damage of it. So whilst the damage is going down on paper from 75 to 60 per ground rupture, it should mean that it's doing more damage, because whilst it did more damage before, it missed a lot of stuff, so overall the damage wasn't great. So now it will do less damage per hit, but should do a lot more hits, and therefore more good. Okay, next up we have a buff to Nazara, one of the newer cards in this expansion, and definitely underperforming I think a bit at the moment. So she's receiving a couple of changes. So true damage is going to be lost, and Icebreaker, a brand new keyword, is going to be gained. Now Icebreaker is basically true damage but only for frozen targets. So whereas true damage ignores all defensive damage mitigation, Icebreaker only ignores the frozen mitigation, because remember, frozen targets take 50% less damage. So basically, against frozen targets, nothing changes for her, and she will still be doing her maximum 70 DPS damage. Now, Vampiric's getting a little change, so if she's trying to kill something and something else steals that kill, she should still get the heal. So that was kind of an annoying thing when you used her. So remember, Vampiric gives you a percentage of the HP in healing of the unit that you just killed. She has a special kind of Vampiric, which is the Cold Blood Vampiric, which I think is 30% healing. But that will also be a buff to the regular Vampiric, which is from the Frostfang familiar. So true damage down to Icebreaker. I mean, overall it's worse, but in most situations, especially with her Frost Nova, it'll be the same. And it makes more sense for her to have this special Icebreaker rather than just overall true damage. And as we go through, we'll see that change reflected on various different minions. Right. Zealots of the Burning Fist, receiving a small change. When only one remains, the remaining one gains Rage and Haste previously, and now gains Spirit. So I think that leaves the remaining one quite strong. An interesting thing with the remaining one is that doesn't necessarily mean the first one has died. You could black hole the first one, for example, and then there's only one on the board. That one gets buffed, and then the other one comes back. Is it worth it? 3 mana black hole to get a Rage, Hasted, and Spirited Zealot? I don't know. Definitely, if you get extra value from the black hole as well, that would be nice. Could be strong. Right, let's have a look at some rebalances. So the rebalances are with things were changed in loads of ways, or ways we don't even understand. So Ghast has always been a little bit problematic. And the reason he's been problematic is because he has his attack animation, and then he has his revive a skeleton animation. And they kind of interrupt each other. So he can't attack while he's reviving a skeleton. And when the cooldowns of his attack and his revive were changed, it just broke his animation completely. So one of the main reasons for this change is to fix his animation and make him work in a way that he works with his animation. So previously, he would, when something died near him, he would kind of stop attacking and raise. What he does now is when something dies near him, and I think it's a ground minion dies near him, enemy ground minion, within an 8 range, he stores its essence, and he can do that once every second. And that will continue until there are no enemies nearby. And when there are no enemies nearby, he then consumes those essences and revives a skeleton for each of those essences. So if he's got 5 essences, he revives a little skeleton for each of those. And it's unlimited. We had a little play around with it, and you can revive hundreds of these little guys. But of course, that's not really going to happen in normal play. But hopefully this should make him better and potential and definitely fix his animation issues. So it'll be interesting to see Ghast. I think Ghast is better than people think, and we'll see if this makes him any better than that going forward. Right, let me know what you think about this change to Morgrel's Mark, because I can't tell if this is a buff or a nerf. I think it might be both, depending on the situation. So, the Swarmers spawn at the target minion's location. Now, previously, the Swarmers would spawn at the location that you use the spell. And you might think those are going to be the same thing, but they're not. Because, for example, if you've got a rammer, a fast-moving thing that's going to ignore all the minions, then the distance between where you spawned it and where the minion is are massive, and you end up with these Swarmers all over the place. So, the good side of that is that the Swarmers will spawn more on the minion that they're trying to deal with. The bad side of it is that they're not going to do that weird spawning where they spawn away and run off and grab a bridge, for example. Remember, the new bridge rules may or may not affect that. And I think that's one of the things that makes Morgrel Mark so strong, is that you do have this strong spell that has its utilization, but it also has the bridge grabbing potential as well. And I think if this nullifies a bit of the bridge grabbing potential of it, I do think it's going to be more of a nerf than a buff. But again, let me know what you think. Okay, so let's have a look at the nerfs now. So, Blade Start, can no longer directly hit the same target multiple times. Now, you might be freaking out and thinking, oh, I can't do what I normally do. But it doesn't affect much. This is just really a bug fix. So you can still hit the tower, hit a unit, hit the tower, hit the same unit, bounce between them. You can still do that. What you can't do is do it where it kind of gets stuck in one of the big minions and just destroys it. We've all seen that happen, and hopefully that shouldn't happen anymore. Now, I don't know how that bug fix is implemented. I don't know if it can still get stuck in big minions but doesn't damage them, or it can just no longer get stuck in them. But I guess we'll find out from trying. But yeah, Blaze should still be great, just not as kind of that. Just get that horrible thing where it gets stuck in something huge and destroys it. You feel terrible as a Blade Star user. You just feel awful. Right, Caber Tosser. So this change is basically because it's the Woodsman's getting the change as well, so it affects this as well. Caber Tosser doesn't need a nerf, really. It got a lot of changes. We don't really see it played too much. But anyway, the damage is going down from 100 to 70. So this is just the regular attack damage. And the attack cooldown is going up from 2.1, well, or down, but down is better, for 1.7. So it does less damage per hit, but attacks more quickly. So that's quite important, because previously it had these important thresholds where it hit for 100, or when it's raged 150, which is quite a big threshold when it comes to killing things in one hit. So those thresholds have now been reduced from 70 to 70 and 105. Now the DPS is not going down much, so 47 down to 41, but because it's hitting less but slightly faster, it takes more hits to kill something than it previously would. So although the DPS is going down a little bit, it will trade way worse against a lot of things. So for example, he now takes 2 hits to kill a spear thrower, which has 90 HP, instead of 1 hit. And you can imagine, if it's fighting a lot of spear throwers, having to take 2 hits to hit each of those instead of 1 is definitely going to change it a lot. Of course, the reduced attack cooldown means it's going to be slightly better against Horde, but I don't think that's too much. That's of course slightly better, but I think it's still overall going to be quite a nerf. And when it's raged again, it's going to take more hits to kill things than it would before. So previously, when it was raged, it would one-shot a lot of things like the Annihilator, the War Dancer, stuff like that, whereas now it's going to take more hits to do so. And of course, more hits means it takes longer, it trades less, takes more damage, and is just overall less effective. So that's the nerf to the Caber Tosser. Doesn't affect his Caber at all. Right, next up we have a change to Chief Icebreaker Bolf. And this is a guy that's been kind of everywhere last season. So he's getting a few changes. So just like with Nazara, true damage is going to Icebreaker. So he'll no longer be able to hit through Divine Shields, Barrel Shields, stuff like that. But against Icebreaker, he will still be able to do his maximum damage. And he has a special thing. And just to clarify, because there's been some other confusion regarding this, he does 100% increased damage against frozen targets, but that's something that only he does. That's not part of the Icebreaker thing, so Nazara doesn't do that, and any other things that have Icebreaker. Only Bolf does that 100% increased damage. So because he does that increased damage against frozen targets, his standard stats are being reduced, so his damage is going down from 120 to 55, and his attack cooldown is changing a little bit, and I'll tell you why that is in a second. So 2 seconds going down to 1.9 seconds. So basically, he'll still be great against freezing something, DPS in something, but when that thing is unfrozen, then his damage drops considerably from how it was before. Kind of makes more sense as to sort of the theme of the card. So he's going to do a lot less damage to Master Towers, for example. So his standard DPS is dropping from 60 to 29. So outside of attacking frozen units, way worse. Against frozen units, DPS dropping from 60 to 58. So kind of almost irrelevant. And the reason that they changed his attack cooldown to 1.9 seconds is they want him to get 3 hits off on a frozen target. So he freezes something, hits it again, and then it becomes unfrozen. So he can do 330 damage to frozen targets. Because remember, he does 100% increased damage to frozen targets. So instead of doing 55 damage, he does 110 damage per hit to frozen things. So he can kill, for example, a Bara whilst it's frozen. So he can put out a lot of damage against frozen things, but once things are no longer frozen, not so good. Okay, so I think that's a fair nerf. He's very strong. He's been everywhere. And it makes more sense as a sort of the chief icebreaker both, right? He's an icebreaker. He does extra damage to frozen things. Makes sense. Right. Net Blaster, attack cooldown going up to 4.5 seconds. Very strong. Probably undoing a previous buff. But I always say anything that has a really strong crowd control effect like this needs to be handled with care. Propeller Scrats, the attack cooldown is going up a little bit from 0.8 to 0.9 seconds. So of course their DPS drops, and when you have 1,000 of them, then that's 1,000 DPS drops. Propeller Horde kind of everywhere at the moment. Rimagal is another one that's receiving this true damage being replaced by Icebreaker, which again makes sense for the unit. You know, there's no reason for it to have true damage. Icebreaker kind of makes sense. Remember, Icebreaker is no damage reduction from frozen. And this makes sense with his Rimagal's Breath as well, because that lost true damage. But true damage to Icebreaker is going to be overall a nerf, because Icebreaker is worse than true damage. Is this a card that even needs a nerf? Definitely not. Will we see something in the future regarding this? I mean, maybe. But it's not a card we see too often. And it's just included there because, you know, the true damage to Icebreaker change makes sense for these kind of cards. Slitherbound, we see these everywhere, so the attack cooldown going up a little bit, so their DPS drops, and they apply poison less quickly. They are very strong for sure at the moment, and remember this change will affect all Slitherbounds, Chain Gang, Cool Slitherbound, Slitherbind, whatever it's called now, will all feel this nerf. Right. Anything else you want nerfed? Yes. Yes, we do. We want the Wartrek Dreadnought nerfed. Okay, we got a bunch of nerfs for it. So there's a bunch of little nerfs, but I think overall it's going to definitely add up to something that hopefully brings it back to a normal state. Right. So it's going to get extra 50 HP, which I don't necessarily think it even needs, but extra 50 HP for the base version. But then the increased versions, Perk 2, Perk 3 going forward, have their health reduced by 50 HP compared to what they were before, but they get the extra 50 from the other one. So basically the base version has extra 50 HP, the other versions have the same HP. Big change here, the range is going down from 8 to 6, so it will trade a lot worse against range things. Things will get closer to it. Succubus has a range of 6, so that's pretty short range. Also, the attack cooldown is going up from 2 seconds to 2.2 seconds, so that means a DPS reduction from 25 down to 22, so another little nerf. The AoE, which is the area of effect of its standard attack, is going down from 2 to 1.5, which is the same size as a Siegebreaker, so far smaller AoE. It doesn't seem much, but I think it will be noticeable when you have stuff clumped together. Now, for some reason, the Missile Scrap AoE is going up. So that's the Missile Scrap, the Perk 3 one where it fires it. The AoE is the area that it lands and does damage. So that's going up a little bit. Not sure why that needs it, but the Missile Scrap cooldown is going down, up, getting worse, from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. So the Missile Scrat on the back will only fire every 4 seconds instead of every 3 seconds. And remember, we already had a hotfix to nerf it in various ways, so the Scrat Missile can only shoot things that are in front of it, for example. So hopefully the combination of the previous hotfix and these nerfs will bring it more in line. And it will make it something that people can feel like they don't have to play, because in all game modes it's been disgusting. It's been everywhere. Yes, I got to Grandmaster without playing it because I'm a legend, but it was a slog. Okay, let me know what you think in the chat of the nerfs to the Dreadnought. Is it going to be enough? I guess we're going to find out. Okay, so the Woodsman, this is the same nerfs that we spoke about before with the Caber Tosser. This is also going to affect the Groggy and the Adventuring Party, so damage going down, cooldown being quicker, but overall, definitely a nerf. Right, so those are the balance changes. Just a couple more things to go through. Right, so we've got some tournaments, which is going to be the Knights Duel number 36. I think it's going to be on the 13th of July. These are the Saturday one-day events. We've got the $400 prize pool. Those events have been great recently. Would be great to have you in it. Remember, they're open to people of all ability, cross-platform, so Xbox, mobile, PC, whatever. Everybody's welcome, and it's a great thing to be a part of. Links in the chat description, and it'll be great to see you there. Okay, let's just remind ourselves what we've seen. So Emergency Mitigation Protocol version 2.5 dropping Monday the 24th of June. We've got the new season pass with the 2 new cards, the Protocol Assassin and the Null Matrix. We've got the new cosmetics, including the Gunslinger Wrecked and the Ravager emote. We've got the new bridge rules with a 1.5 second timer to neutralize. We've got all those balance changes, and we've got that new tournament. Now, you might notice that we don't have any bug fixes here. There's probably some bug fixes going on, but as I said, the devs have been really hard at work, spending a lot of time on the alternate master perks, trying to get those ready for version 2.6. So this is not going to be a particularly bug fix heavy patch. We don't really have too many real bad gameplay bugs. But I know there's like some disconnection stuff and stuff like that the devs are keen to, of course, get resolved as soon as possible. So if you wait and see what the devs' official patch notes, there might be some bug fixes in there. But one thing we have in the previous few patches, we've had a ton of bug fixes, which is, I think, they tried to fix all the major stuff, so then they could say, right, okay, let's take some time to get these alternative master perks sorted out. And then they don't have to worry about the bug fixes too much in that period of time. Right, so there we have it. Minion Masters version 2.5 Emergency Mitigation Protocol. I'm excited. It's dropping Monday, so make sure you drop by the Twitch stream tomorrow if you are watching this live on YouTube. We'll check out the new stuff. Be very interesting to see how the balance changes are for the certain things, especially the War Track Dreadnought and the new cards. As I said, I don't think the new cards are going to dominate the meta, but you know, it could be wrong. But if they do, I don't think they're going to be as horrific as the War Track Dreadnought. That was definitely something that the PTR and the devs really messed up the balance of that. But it happens, and you know, it's frustrating. But I think what made it worse is we had that delay with the Android patch that took ages to come out, and that caused all sorts of problems. And then because of that, it made it very difficult to hotfix because we didn't know if the Android version is going to go through or not. So fingers crossed, on Monday, Android, Xbox, and PC are all able to get the new version without issues. I know the devs have changed their pipeline so that they can send the patches through to Google and to Microsoft earlier, so that they do have that time to actually get them applied, which is kind of frustrating because mostly all the patches, especially for Google, have gone through almost immediately, but then we had that one that was like 8 days out of nowhere. And the devs, as I understand it, didn't really get any information from Google as to why it took that long. Anyway, fingers crossed, tomorrow will be smooth sailing. Now, I think the downtime is going to be a little longer than normal, because there are some extra stuff they had to fix. If you're interested in, for example, following your ELO, and remember, matchmaking is driven by ELO and not rank, although ELO is kind of hidden in the game, there are some third-party websites that you can check your ELO on. They have been broken for the last season. One of the things that they're going to do while the servers are offline is hopefully fix that. So for going forward for the new season, we can check our ELOs. And if you're interested in that, I've got a video about that showing you how ELOs work and how to check your ELO. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. As I mentioned at the start of the video, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Always good to have new subscribers, and I do everything I can to keep you guys up to date on everything Minion Masters related. As always, make sure you keep that bell on. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. Drop in the comments and say hi, or, you know, something more interesting than that. Whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. Minion Masters, bad as a fish, signing out.